Okay, we are back live with another Between the Pages book chat, and today we have sci-fi and dystopian author Barbara Gilbert with us today to talk about her series Future Apocalypse. And I'll let her introduce herself now, so take it away.
Hi, I'm Barbara Gilbert, disabled veteran, live in Easton, Maryland on the Eastern Shore, and just decided to get into publishing in the last 2 years. Um, how I got into that was basically my kids were doing NaNoWriMo and I was trying to inspire them. And a couple of years later, I decided to go ahead and try again, and I ended up publishing a couple of books. I'm also a retired teacher, so I spent 7 years in the Air Force and also worked at Radio Shack, had my own computer company, and then my last job was teaching.
Cool. You're very well-rounded life, it sounds. And so tell us a little bit about the series, what it's about, the plot, the intrigue.
Okay, Future Apocalypse starts out with the main character. She's a brilliant young woman, grows up in Wilmington, North Carolina. A tragedy hits, and she and her mother move off to Seattle, Washington, actually Buckley, Washington, and the Pacific Northwest. She's always dreamed of doing time travel, but never had the funds. So her and her friend start up a bionics company where they build bionic limbs for veterans and other people that have missing limbs. Eventually, she creates her time travel project, jumps 250 years into the future so that she can explore more advanced technologies and science. Unfortunately, she finds herself in the apocalypse. She goes out and sees that Seattle's underwater, tries to go back, finds out she's stuck. Now that's book one, where she is stuck in the apocalypse. Book two finds her with a group of people that are willing to help her find a mythical city of technology. In book two, they have to travel across the Cascade Mountains. They face perilous danger as they travel over to the eastern side of former Washington state to this city of technology, hoping that they'll be admitted. She finds that the city of technology already has a time machine, but can't get it working. And there are some dark secrets. In book three, we find Paulette traveling through time and history in an effort to keep her, quote, new boss, Oliver, from changing the past and damaging it. But, they still go and change the past. And she struggles to get back home and finds that things aren't always as they seem. And towards the end, Oliver gets what he's been waiting to get, though he doesn't know it. He gets what's coming to him. And there is a little twist about how she gets home and what she does afterwards.
Sounds cool. So I find it interesting that you've added the time travel element in reverse to what normally happens with future dystopian, because usually when you have a future dystopian, you have the time travel, and the time travel element, it's future coming to the past.
Right.
You've got the present coming to the future. So why did you decide to go that route?
Well, initially, as I was developing the story, I decided that I wanted, again, my character had decided that changing the past isn't the right thing to do, despite the fact that she had a very compelling reason to go back in the past and, of course, change it. So she wanted, like I said, to go into the future, learn about new technologies, advanced science, things that she wasn't able to learn in her current present. Though she does eventually in book three travel into the past. They travel in the past several times in testing the time machine, as well as going to the past to make a change and then jumping through future, decades to see how those changes go. And then finding out that despite everything looking good, ultimately it was bad. And then, of course, they had to figure out how to get back to where they were and then stop themselves from doing the things they did. So it is a mix of time travel, both future and past.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the main character, what she like.
Okay, Paulette is, like I said, a brilliant young woman. She was born after her mother actually got a lightning strike, and she didn't talk for a long time. They were really, really, her parents were really frustrated that, their child was going to be like mentally deficient or have some sort of disability. And when she did start talking, it just totally dropped their mouths open. She was like talking in soliloquies. She knew everything, kind of like just been studying. She's got an unusual characteristics of having brown hair, blue eyes. As she grows up, she again is in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. Just your typical teenager going through high school, feeling left out because, again, she's smarter than everybody. She doesn't, show that much, but she gets really bored in school. But her only friend that she makes, they have a lot of fun doing all these little science projects. And so she eventually, like I said, he convinces her to go to college. She doesn't want to, but she does, and then drops out to start the bionics company. She can tend to be very shy. She has a Southern accent, and that has dissipated over her time of living in the Pacific Northwest. But when she gets shy or nervous, it comes in really strong. But she is a strong woman. Despite her parents having been, quote, preppers to some degree, she always kind of pushed that aside, going, well, I don't really need to be prepared. But she still had her go bag and things. And that's what saves her when she gets stuck in the past, because she did bring supplies with her, knowing that she was going to be scouting the area for at least a week.
Okay. So what inspired you to write science fiction?
Well, I've always been, I guess, even though I'd never really written anything that was published, always had a knack for coming up with, especially apocalyptic scenarios. A lot of that, believe it or not, stemmed from my fascination with the Book of Revelations. Always wondered how the end of the world would happen, what would happen with people and all that. As far as writing the sci-fi, I think a lot of my inspiration came from just the different authors that I grew up reading, Terry Brooks, and even more recently in the apocalyptic areas, Tom Abrams with his Travelers series, Boyd Craven with his series. So I think I just like the science fiction, and I kind of try and keep it a little towards the reality side so that I have that option. I am thinking maybe down towards the future of maybe coming up with my own worlds. But right now I like being able to kind of keep somewhat grounded, but still bring things to light that aren't quite here yet, like the total bionic replacement. We're getting close, but in this book, you can't even tell that they have a bionic limb. And then, of course, time travel. And I did a lot of research on time travel theories to try and keep the time travel as close to reality, if that was available, as possible, but still have some twist to it. So.
Sounds interesting. So what was the hardest scene or type of scene for you to write in the series?
I think the hardest scene technically to write was about the time travel, trying to get the things right, trying to get the verbiage right, and again, making sure that it's believable is, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so what was your favorite scene or type of scene to write in the series?
I've had a couple of favorite scenes, but I think my funnest and favorite scene was in book 3, where Oliver gets what's coming to him. Not to give too much of a spoiler away, but he wants to go and change the past again. And she's like, okay, let's go. And she plugs in a date. And let's just say that Oliver is a very arrogant character, very bossy. And so he immediately gets out of the time pod, and she's just like, closes it up, locks it up, and leaves. And he's yelling and screaming, and she's just smiling as she's watching things come towards him. So,
Okay. Yeah, that sparks the imagination.
yes.
Okay. So, do you have any quirky secondary characters that like to steal scenes?
um, Possibly. I think my characters, not so much about stealing scenes, I don't think, but doing things that I didn't expect them to do. I had a character that I planned on killing, but he decided to die sooner and differently than I planned, which then also, when that happened, had a character come out of left field that I had not planned to put in the series, which brought her stealing scenes basically because she was trying to become the lead, I forgot the word, tracker when they were crossing the mountains. And she was in competition with the one person that was selected to do the tracking. And of course, there's this competition between the two. They just don't know it because she's following the group, but staying where they can't see her.
Okay. So, which character in your book would you most like to hang out with in real life?
I don't know. I kind of like my main character because I'd love to time travel too, just to see the past and not change it, but see what I've always wanted to see what the past actually is. When I taught science, I was teaching earth science and general science. And I told the kids, technically science is a theory, hypotheses that are tested and, proven to the best of our abilities. But in reality, it'd be nice to actually travel back in time and see what actually happened, not interfere, just observe. So I've kind of been fascinated with that. And in some degrees, we do time travel a little when we go to different countries. We travel back into the past just by a few hours, or into the future by going ahead a day. But yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that as a history buff. I mean, I'd love to travel back to the past and actually see it. I don't think I'd like to stay there for any amount of time, but just quick visit and back home.
Right.
So, what are your characters afraid of?
Paulette, my main character, I think she's mostly afraid of the fact that, she doesn't fit in. She has a hard time finding friends. Some of my other characters are afraid of Oliver, the main one of the protagonists or antagonists in book 3. And let's see, the characters from book 2, pretty much they're pretty much afraid of not being able to survive, and having they feel that if they don't respect the earth, sort of like the Native Americans did, that the total cataclysm that happened that caused the destruction and the apocalypse will happen again. So they don't really live in fear, but they try to respect that.
Okay, so do you have a favorite character?
I'm going to say, I'm not really sure if I have a favorite character. If I did, I would say, again, it would probably have to be Paulette, just because the things that she has to go through, the time travel she does, the dangers she faces, and the fact that she kind of evolves from being this out of place, shy person to a little bit more upfront and standing up for herself, towards the end. So.
Okay, so you obviously write in the sci-fi genre, but are there any other genres you'd like to explore or have explored?
I haven't really explored anything yet, but I'm thinking I might dabble in some fantasy. Like I said, I really like Terry Brooks' Shannara series, or Shannara as I found out it said. And so I'd have to figure out if I could build, a believable world if I do that.
So would you ever consider mixing sci-fi and fantasy?
Possibly. It just depends on what's going on. I mean, you can have that little bit of science fiction and science mixed in with magic and fantasy, depending on how you create that.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
Okay, you can find my books on Amazon.com, and it's really easy. Just type Future Apocalypse and it'll come up. The first book is Future Apocalypse Beginnings. Second is Future Apocalypse Journey to the City of Technology. And the third one is Future Apocalypse Homeward Bound. You can also go to my website, and I am working on trying to build a new one that has made a really easy name to keep up with. But right now you can go to bjgilbert815.wix site, that's wixsite.com/SYFY author. And when you do go to that website, you'll also find a short story called Year of Reckoning that you can download for free.
Cool. And you can find a link to that website in the description of this chat. So if you can't remember the URL there, it's easy to get.
Yes.
So I'd like to thank you for being here. It's a pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, thank you very much.
And Between the Pages Book Chat, we'll be back next weekend with 2 more authors. So please join us then. Bye for now.
All right. Bye.